Here's a guy who actually worked from a humble upbringing to become the biggest movie star in Hollywood, and now in 2032 he's going to be running for president. And a really crummy newscaster is going to cover his presidential candidacy.
Man, someone got on me. Someone got on me on Twitter saying that they love... forgive me for not remembering his name. He's like, I love everything Brian says. I always agree with him, except this. And how dare you say anything bad about whoever this actor is who...
Randall Park.
He's done various other things. I think I saw him in Veep when I used to watch that. But him, and specifically what is written for him, sucks in this show. But there's a lot of sucking in this week's episode we could talk about.
Well, and let me just say this. For the documentarian in you, I understand why you hated this episode. But the newscaster's wearing on me because it's I see through it. I don't think he's funny. I think he's being funny on purpose, and he's not being funny as a result of it. I don't know. The Rock is always golden whenever he's out there. He just exudes charisma. But boy, they were really at the start of this episode. They were trying to put Vince over, even though this episode was in Hawaii in 1982. Depending on what part of 1982, Vince had or was about to buy Titan Sport, the parent company, from his father. And there are just so many inaccuracies. I love Rick James at the start of the program. Let's start with the positive stuff. But the whole time frame, everybody involved in this episode, what was going on, it didn't work because I know once again they're going for a casual audience and people who don't even watch wrestling, but none of this ever would have or could have taken place or would have taken place with any of these people involved, or they would not have done the things that they did had it indeed taken place. Did that about cover it?
This episode infuriated me. First of all, you brought up Vince. Of all the actors you can get to play Vince McMahon, this guy that they found exudes none of Vince McMahon.
None of Vince.
There have been inaccuracies in every episode, and we kind of have said, look, if it was a documentary, we would kill it for these things, but it's a fun little silly show. But this week's episode, everything was so egregious that I was infuriated watching it. I was like, how did Rock sign off on this crap this week?
Well,
and there will be some kid one day who's like, gets in the wrestling business and thinks he knows wrestling history, and we'll talk about when the Junkyard Dog jumped to the Hawaiian Cowboys promotion or whatever the fuck.
Let's do more positive things. Rocky, the actor Rocky Johnson, is full of himself, is he not? Boy, he's got that down pat. I've mentioned last week I like Atta, I think the best on the show, but the Leah Maivia actress looks pretty fucking good, looks close, right? And she's like a comedy version of Leah Maivia without the death threats. Sort of like Dennis Corleuzzo was the fun version of Tony Soprano without the organized crime and mob hits.
Hey, if you want the death threats, introduce a Lars Anderson character onto the show.
I was about to say, well, that's maybe who's coming after the opposition promoter will be the Lars Anderson guy. But okay, the JYD actor is a fat slob in 1982 when Dog was jacked. Dog was never in Hawaii in 1982. He wasn't working for Vince yet. Either Vince. He was still in Mid-South.
The Dog was never that fat as an active wrestler.
Never that fat ever, yeah. Randy Savage is introduced and did Dusty's line. Vince McMahon, Sr. nor Jr. never co-promoted a battle royal with Leah Maivia in 1982. There may have been WWF talent there, but not this selection of it. None of these guys were together in Hawaii in 1982, especially Randy Savage, who was still living in Lexington in a fucking apartment off of New Circle Road, running his own fucking business with his father and Lanny.
82 is the year Peter Maivia died, isn't it?
I thought so. So now they're thinking about him like he's been gone for fucking 10 years. He may not be fucking cold in the ground yet. Rocky Johnson is jealous over Andre's action figure, but Andre wasn't the first person to get an action figure, and the action figures didn't come out until, was it 85 or 86?
Oh, it was definitely 85. I was going to say late 84, but definitely by 85. The first batch were Hogan, Andre, Iron Sheik, and then I think it was Big John Studd and Nikolai, and then they introduced the rest of the first set, which was like JYD, Piper, etc.
Because the first time that me and the Midnight Express started thinking, wait a minute, maybe we should ask more about them dolls he was talking about during our meeting with Vince, where we were like, what the fuck? Why would anybody want to buy dolls of us? We're heels, right? We found out Iron Sheik got a quarterly check for like 60-something grand. Quarter check for the dolls. But anyway, it didn't happen in 1982, and it wasn't Andre, and blah, blah, blah. Did Atta ever audition for Star Search?
That was news to me. Again, I'm not going to criticize. That's the best character on the show.
Yeah, I'm actually wanting to see where that goes.
Yeah,
I had not heard this.
I don't know anything about that.
And when the JYD guy said the opposition promoter offered him more money, plus I get to do whatever I want with my persona. Oh my God. Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't his best friend, but I spent a lot of time around Junkyard Dog, hearing him talk in the locker room, whatever the fuck. Those are words that would have never come out of his mouth, especially in 1982. And he was wanting to drop the JYD gimmick and be a fucking rich gimmick or whatever the fuck. It made him sound like an idiot. No wrestler would have talked like that in 1982.
Yeah, what did he say?
They do today.
Was it Penthouse Dog? Was that what he wanted?
Penthouse Dog instead of Junkyard Dog. I can be rich and blah blah. Just no. And besides that, the Outlaw promoter. Okay, who was it? You're a better historian off the top of your head than I am. Who was it that did try to run opposition to Lee Maivia? I've been trying to think.
I don't remember the name, but I remember it being years later in the 80s, because that was where there was a big controversy, where there were death threats, and Leah and Lars got in a lot of trouble. Yeah.
But I guarantee you it wasn't this little Chinese cowboy that they showed. and none of the guys would have been showing an already booked match to go work for this guy. And this story is no.
There was never that level of talent in Hawaii for periods of time in the 80s. Just hanging around.
They would come in for the big, it wasn't like they were living in a hotel waiting for these matches. They would come in for the shot and they'd go. There was tons of talent that would come in and out, and maybe they'd take a vacation singly, but not just everybody just hanging out.
You'd come back from Japan, you'd stop in Hawaii.
But anyway, we need to work your 605 sources, because we need to find out and tell the real story behind the opposition story in Hawaii and the death threats and the people being suggested to leave the island, either on their own power or feet first, and things like that.
How about when they had the poster where they talk about each guy and they start moving? Not only did they have the most bootleg-looking King Kong Bundy ever, they didn't even have the right kind of singlet. It looked completely off.
Well, he was King Kong Bundy from the hips down, but he was Baron von Raschke from the waist up. That fucking and I know who you're going to find that actually looks like these people. If you had anybody that looks like these people, they'd already be in wrestling. But I don't know. Those were my thoughts. And there wasn't much of Young Rock in this Young Rock, was there? Except him hawking his dad's gimmicks, which, by the way, Rocky Johnson wasn't selling his own merchandise in 1982.
Yeah, the idea that Rocky Johnson was upset about Andre getting a figure in 82. Rocky wasn't even working for the WWF in 82. But also, he was never the number 2 star. I mean, he was over really big when he worked with Morocco before the Snuka-Morocco feud, but he was never, like, right below Andre.
No.
Never, ever. And I don't know,
I guess Bob Backlund doesn't exist at this point.
Yeah. Or Jimmy Snuka.
Or Jimmy Snuka. Oh, could there be an interfamilial island feud there? Because Snuka was legitimately, in 1982, the number 1 babyface, because even though Backlund was the champion, Snuka was more popular.
Yeah, I mean, this show is just, it's all over the place. Just Randy Savage randomly being there. And this cowboy. And the other thing is
in 1982, Randy Savage didn't have the money to buy a plane ticket to Hawaii.
And they gave the young Rock, he's like, oh, I'll start a fan club for you. They gave him Barry Rose's gimmick.
Yeah.
Because there was a Rocky Johnson fan club, the Thrill Seekers fan club in the mid-70s.
And where I stole the Thrill Seekers name for Storm and Jericho. I researched it, for 15 years later. Yeah, Barry Rose should actually be, maybe he can force NBC to give him a executive producer credit for not suing for misrepresentation of him. Boy, see here, if only Stephen P. New was advertising today, we could go right into that. But there's so many of these transitions that we just can't use today.
What do you think of the show overall? It's just, and it bounces around. Like last week it was Rock in high school. Now it's back to him as a little kid. I mean, I like the general idea, but just the execution leaves a lot to be desired.
I'm thinking it might be easier to follow if it was a little more chronological, but this is supposed to be just snippets from his childhood. I get that. I don't know. It's hard when you're not a sitcom. If you're a sitcom, you either have a laugh track or you do it in front of a live audience, but there's some feedback. Well, there's funny lines here, but it's not really a sitcom, so nobody's laughing, and it kind of, But then when the heartwarming family talk comes in, this is not exactly a heartwarming family show that you need to take seriously, so perhaps it's just a 22-minute plus commercials potato chip that you can snack on, but not necessarily fill up on.
Is Rocky Johnson going to go work for the opposition? He seemed open to it when the guy presented him with that ham or whatever it was.
Yeah, and the fucking... There have been guys that have been swayed to go work for the opposition by large amounts of money, but never by fucking hams. And sometimes they're motivated by revenge or hatred or money or whatever, but not ham. Anyway, I tell you what, though, especially because as young Rock mentioned, they were hungry in some of those days. Maybe Rocky Johnson would go work for the opposition for a good, healthy breakfast. What do you think?
I think that would be a great idea, let alone I think he would do it. Of course he would do it.
I think he would do it if we gave him the magic spoon. Folks, Rocky Johnson and anybody else, you will work opposition. You will work for your worst enemy. You will crawl across hell with gasoline britches on for a taste of the magic spoon. Magic Spoon cereal is the best tasting and healthiest cereal going today because, you might not want to eat cereal like when you were a kid because the carbs and the sugar and the fat and etc. But no, healthy breakfast does not have to be boring. And now, we mentioned it on the last program. Not only are the existing Magic Spoon flavors available like cocoa and fruity and frosted, peanut butter and cinnamon, but for an amazing limited time offer this month only, we're talking about cookies and cream and maple waffle. They have been added to the selection of Magic Spoon. Still 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, and only 140 calories a serving. Keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. You know what those GMOs are? One of the listeners told us, genetically modified organisms. Well, Magic Spoon is not going to creep show you. You're not going to turn into a green thing like Stephen King did. Folks, right now you can build your own box. You can build your own custom bundle. You can do anything you want, and there's a money-back guarantee, the happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Go to magicspoon.com/Jim. I told you everybody likes to /Jim. Magicspoon.com/Jim to grab the new limited edition cookies and cream or maple waffle or build a custom bundle of all the flavors and try them today. And be sure to use the promo code Jim at checkout to save $5 off your order. And now this is good anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. Canada's figured in now too. but only when you use our code at checkout, Jim. So magicspoon.com/Jim. Use the code Jim at checkout to save $5 off. Magic Spoon, cookies and cream, maple waffle. What more can they do? That was not a rhetorical question.
I didn't know what to say. They can do anything they want because they're delicious.
What more can they do? They can't do anything more. They've done it. They've dropped the cow. How do they follow this? I don't know.
The cow.
You don't remember the Saturday Night Live wrestling sketch? First season, 1975. It was the killer, the bees. You know, Belushi, the killer bees, right? Belushi and, oh gosh, who was the other bee? May have been...
Well, they had various bees. Elliot Gould was a guest bee at various times.
I'm trying to think who the other bee in this sketch was. But he was the killer bees against the wasps. It was Aykroyd and Jane Curtin, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They had a little wrestling ring there. And Aykroyd was dressed up in a suit, had a briefcase. And the wasps wrestled the bees. And I think it may have been, goddamn, was it Chevy Chase who was doing the wrestling announcing? But finally... the announcer says, and can they, will they, for the last bit of the climactic point of the sketch. And then suddenly a fucking big rubber cow drops from the ceiling into the ring. Yes, they've dropped the cow. The match is over. You can't follow it after you've dropped a cow.
I guess not.
I've used that before in finish meetings. And boom, boom, boom. And then we drop the cow.